As we come to the end of a 40-day nationwide lockdown, there's only one question that the entire nation is asking, whether we're going to be seeing lockdown 3.0 taking place in the country. It seems almost inevitable at this point that the lockdown will not be fully lifted across the country. Several experts have made it clear that India is simply not ready to lift all curbs. But at this point, there are a number of options before the government, and we break that down for you now. Option 1 is the most obvious one, and that is, of course, to extend the lockdown as it is across the country. This will mean that there is a blanket order from the central government, from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that the lockdown stays as it is. So that will be status quo across the country. There will be no relaxations at all in any parts of the country, whether you live in a green zone, an orange zone, or of course in a red zone. Now, it looks unlikely that the government will go for this because they know how important it is to resume economic activity. And that's where option 2 comes in, which is to ensure that the lockdown remains, but to allow some level of economic activity. The Prime Minister, while speaking and interacting with chief ministers across from all states, in fact, made it very clear that the economy is as important as the fight against COVID-19. And it is in that spirit that perhaps the government will decide to ensure that while the lockdown remains in place, meaning that curbs will be there will be no relaxations in travel and the likes, they will try to resume economic activity as much as possible. This will also mean that states play a large role in deciding where economic activity will resume. For example, again we come back to the breakdown of the 3 zones, that's the red, orange and green zones. If the government says that we have to ensure we resume economic activity, the focus will be on first kicking that off in places which are green zones where there are no cases of coronavirus, and in orange zones where things are under control right now by the administration. There the onus will fall on the states. Option 3 is where there is a phased lifting of the lockdown, and here the onus will completely be on states. The centre perhaps can say that, look, the states can take a decision, a constructive decision based on what the situation is in their respective states. But that will of course mean that again, red zones, places where there are a number of coronavirus cases, will remain completely shut, will remain locked down. The phased lifting of a lockdown will mean that curbs will be relaxed for everyone, for the Aam Aadmi as well, in orange as well as green zones. As far as red zones go, there's no doubt that the government is going to maintain that the lockdown remains in these parts of the country, which means almost every city in India, because it's cities that have been hit the worst and hit the hardest by coronavirus. Those are just 3 of the options before the government, and it's likely that they will choose one of these 3. The Narendra Modi government so far has indicated that states and chief ministers will have a large say on exactly what happens post May 3rd, which is why several states have been strategizing over the last many days to decide exactly how they're going to, lift the lockdown post May 3rd, or whether they're going to extend the lockdown as it is post May 3rd as well. In the coming days, of course, we'll get more clarity. The Prime Minister is expected to speak also before May 3rd, and that's when we'll know exactly what the government strategy is to fight coronavirus.